Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the biggest hurdle, when we're faced with these incredibly powerful new tools, isn't actually the technology itself? It's something, well, much more human, something we all kind of grapple with, that deep-seated resistance to change. Today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that, the fascinating psychological landscape around AI adoption, specifically looking at small and medium-sized businesses, SMBs. We'll explore why people push back, what unique challenges these small businesses face, and really importantly, we'll look at a human-centric blueprint for actually making AI work in the day-to-day flow. We've been digging into this really comprehensive report. It's called AI Adoption Psychology in SMBs. And wow, it's just packed with insights, research, real-world examples.
Yeah, it really is. And our mission today, essentially, is to equip you with a more, let's say, nuanced understanding of all these dynamics. We want to help you anticipate, maybe navigate that whole journey from skepticism all the way to resilience, the goal being to unlock the full potential, not just of the tech, but of your people, too. And what's really striking, I think, is just how universal these human responses are. It doesn't really matter what the specific technology is. The patterns are there.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Because that initial reluctance, that hesitation with AI, it often just gets brushed off as, oh, they're just scared of tech. Technophobia. But the research we've seen suggests it's much deeper, more complex than that, maybe even, dare I say, rational. It seems to tap into some pretty profound anxieties.
Exactly. It's not just about learning a new app. Employee apprehension about AI, it really goes far beyond that. It hits foundational fears about, well, your future, your professional identity. The most obvious one is probably the fear of obsolescence and job displacement. We call it FOBO. It's almost like a modern echo of that old John Henry folktale. The guy racing the steam drill.
Right, battling the machine.
Precisely. Instead of figuring out how to partner with the machine, this mindset makes workers feel like they have to somehow outmuscle or outperform AI rather than collaborating. And look, this fear isn't just pulled out of thin air. Pew Research found over 60% of Americans think AI will mean fewer jobs over the next 20 years. You even see chatter in forums about the bottom 20–30% of the workforce being seen as potentially more replaceable.
So those fears, they're definitely real and widespread. But is the outlook quite that stark? I mean, are jobs just going to disappear across the board?
Well, the reality seems a bit more nuanced. It's more about job disruption than outright replacement. World Economic Forum research suggests that, yes, some roles will be reshaped, some might disappear, but AI is also expected to create job growth in totally new areas. In fact, interestingly, the predicted pace of automation is actually being revised down. A few years ago, they thought maybe 47% of tasks by 2027. Now it's looking more like 42%.
Okay.
So that distinction between disruption and just complete replacement is really critical. It helps reframe this as maybe an opportunity for learning new skills, not just a threat. But beyond just the fear of losing your job, AI integration can trigger another really powerful psychological challenge: the erosion of professional identity and a sense of lost control. Think about it. Our self-worth is often tied up in our expertise, right? Our ability to make decisions.
Sure, your skills, what you bring to the table.
Exactly. So when AI starts automating those core processes, employees can feel like their contributions aren't as valid anymore. It can lead to this sort of purpose crisis. That feeling of, I made this, that ownership, it gets diluted to, well, I made this, but, AI helped a lot. It diminishes that sense of accomplishment. And then there's the anxiety that comes from maybe becoming too dependent on AI, feeling like you can't make decisions without it. That's a real loss of control feeling.
Wow. So it sounds like these big conscious fears are just the surface level then. Are there deeper things going on, maybe subconscious patterns, that make us resist change even more?
Oh, absolutely. Resistance is definitely fueled by these cognitive and behavioral biases. They're like mental shortcuts our brains take, and they subconsciously affect how we react to change. They create this powerful psychological inertia. Take status quo bias, for instance. It's just this incredibly powerful tendency we have to prefer things exactly as they are, to resist change, even if the new way might be objectively better.
Even if it's beneficial.
Even then, it's partly rooted in sunk costs, all the time and effort we've already put into the old way. And for SMBs, where you often have these really ingrained, informal ways of doing things, this bias can be particularly strong. And working right alongside that, you've got confirmation bias.
Ah, yes, seeing what you want to see.
Pretty much. It makes us actively seek out and interpret new information in a way that just confirms what we already believe. So, if an employee is already skeptical about AI, they'll likely focus on any news about AI making mistakes, confirming their belief that it's unreliable, and they'll kind of ignore or downplay the success stories. These two biases together, they create this self-reinforcing loop that really works against trying new things.
Okay, now this next one sounds really fascinating. Loss aversion. What's that about?
Right, loss aversion. This is a big one from behavioral economics. Basically, the psychological pain of a potential loss feels much more intense, much more powerful than the pleasure you'd get from an equivalent gain.
So losing $10 feels worse than finding $10 feels good.
Exactly. And for SMBs, think about it, they often have tighter resources, maybe less tolerance for risk. This becomes a huge barrier. A leader might see data suggesting AI could boost efficiency by, say, 20%, but they'll be more worried about a botched implementation costing them capital, time, or damaging their reputation. That focus on avoiding the potential loss, even if the potential gain is significant, can really stifle innovation. It leads to a very conservative approach.
That makes so much sense, especially when every penny counts. It raises the question, though, doesn't it? Is there a point where not adopting AI, not taking that risk, actually becomes the bigger potential loss down the line?
That is precisely the crucial reframing needed, and we'll definitely touch on that. But first, there's one more bias to consider, the availability heuristic. This is another mental shortcut. We tend to overestimate how likely or important something is based simply on how easily an example comes to mind, especially if it's vivid or recent.
Like seeing a plane crash on the news and suddenly feeling flying is much riskier than it statistically is.
Perfect example. And with AI, a single highly publicized horror story, maybe that lawyer who cited fake cases generated by AI, or Google's Bard making a big factual error that got lots of press, those stick in our minds. These negative anecdotes, they become readily available, easily recalled, and they can disproportionately sway perception, making people overlook loads of data showing successful AI adoption. So, big picture from all these biases, our brains are kind of wired for sticking with the familiar. Adopting AI isn't just about learning software, it's about consciously working against these deep-seated psychological defaults, understanding them. FOBO, the identity crisis, status quo bias, loss aversion, availability heuristic, that's really the essential first step to navigating this.
That's a really powerful way to frame the human element. Now let's zoom in specifically on SMBs. How do these sort of universal human tendencies get amplified in smaller organizations? Are there unique factors making it even tougher for them?
Absolutely, they often do get amplified. And one significant, maybe often overlooked barrier in SMBs is what the report calls the leadership bottleneck. Turns out, many SMB leaders actually score pretty low on AI proficiency themselves. The average was something like 39 out of 100. That puts them squarely in the AI novice category.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the source even mentioned anecdotes like executives not being sure if generative AI was a website or an app and feeling kind of embarrassed to ask. And this knowledge gap at the very top, it creates a serious bottleneck. If leaders don't fully grasp AI's potential, they tend to see it just as a simple tool for, automating basic tasks for their employees. They don't necessarily see it as a strategic partner for their own work, for planning, for analysis.
So it gets underutilized.
Massively underutilized.
Yeah.
They might use it to summarize emails, maybe draft a quick memo, but not for the heavier strategic lifting it could do. And the result, they don't see a significant return on investment, which naturally just validates their initial skepticism, right? It creates this vicious cycle. See, I told you it wasn't all that useful.
Right, right. And what happens then if the official rollout from the top is slow or non-existent? Do employees just start doing their own thing? Is that common?
That leads directly to the next challenge, the rise of shadow AI. When the official path is slow or unclear, employees, who are often just trying to be more efficient, start experimenting on their own. This kind of bottom-up adoption using readily available tools is actually pretty characteristic of SMBs.
Okay, so they're trying to be proactive, which sounds good.
It can be good, that curiosity is valuable, but it also brings significant risks if it's unmanaged. Think data security issues, compliance problems if they're using unapproved tools with company data, inconsistencies in how AI is being applied. And often, leaders are completely unaware of how widespread this unofficial shadow use actually is. Then if something goes wrong, it just becomes another reason for leadership to hesitate on a formal rollout.
Another vicious cycle.
Exactly. The solution isn't necessarily to crack down and police it, but rather to acknowledge that energy and proactively create safe, transparent, secure ways for people to experiment and adopt tools formally. And of course, SMBs face the obvious resource and expertise constraints. It's that classic paradox. They need to innovate to keep up, maybe even more than larger companies, but they often lack the resources. We're talking limited budgets, usually no dedicated in-house AI or data science expertise, often underdeveloped data infrastructure. Getting enough high-quality data to train specific AI models can also be a real hurdle for smaller players.
That does sound like a tough spot. But surely it's not a complete dead end for them. You often hear about SMBs being more agile, more nimble. Can that be an advantage here?
Yeah. You've absolutely hit on a key point. That agility can be a significant advantage if leveraged correctly. It doesn't have to be a dead end at all. The solution lies in being pragmatic and strategic. It means starting small, maybe with low-cost, easily accessible AI tools. It might mean leveraging external expertise, consultants, partners, and crucially, focusing on achieving small, tangible, impactful wins early on. That builds momentum, it builds confidence, and it gradually builds internal expertise. So you turn those constraints from being roadblocks into a reason for creative step-by-step implementation. You work with the constraints, not against them.
Okay, that makes sense. So that brings us to the really practical part. How do we actually move people and organizations from resistance to integration? The report lays out a blueprint that really puts human psychology and company culture front and center.
Exactly. The most effective strategies recognize that you can't just force this. You need to create an environment where adopting AI feels natural, maybe even rewarding. A core part of this is using a phased implementation, often called the crawl, walk, run model.
Crawl, walk, run. Okay, break that down.
So, in the crawl phase, you start really small. You pick strategic pilot projects, think microtransformations that offer immediate visible benefits but carry minimal risk. Examples could be things like automating meeting transcriptions, using AI to generate first drafts of marketing content, maybe implementing a simple AI chatbot for basic customer inquiries.
Things that show value quickly without being too disruptive.
Precisely. The goal is small wins. Build confidence, show people how it can help them directly, reduce that initial fear. Then, once you've got some success stories and people are getting comfortable, you move to the walk phase. Here, you start gradually implementing AI more broadly across the business. You begin to formalize governance rules around usage, data privacy. You gather feedback, refine your approach. And you start integrating AI into slightly more complex workflows, maybe things like predictive analytics for sales or marketing automation. Finally, you reach the run phase. At this stage, AI isn't just a tool anymore, it's fully integrated. It's acting as a strategic co-pilot, helping drive core business functions, fostering innovation. People are using it for complex tasks like deep market analysis, sophisticated decision support, things like that. It becomes part of the operational fabric.
That phased approach sounds much less overwhelming. But beyond just rolling out the tech, how do we actually talk about it? Communication seems absolutely critical for tackling those psychological barriers we discussed earlier.
Oh, it's paramount. Effective communication and transparency are probably the bedrock of building trust and overcoming that resistance. Leaders need to get really specific. Vague promises about efficiency aren't enough. They need to answer that fundamental employee question, okay, but what's in it for me?
Right, make it personal.
Exactly. Show them concretely. This AI tool will help you write that weekly report in half the time. Or this can summarize those long email chains, freeing you up from that tedious task. Focus on reducing pain points. And leaders must address the job displacement fears directly, head on. Reassure people, clearly and repeatedly, that the goal is augmentation making their jobs better, less tedious not replacing them. And there's a really interesting point about authenticity here, too. A study mentioned in the sources found that managers who used AI for, like, writing sincere messages, congratulating someone, offering condolences, were actually perceived as less trustworthy.
Really, less trustworthy.
Yeah. Compared to managers who used AI for more low-stakes informational stuff. It suggests that for genuine empathy, connection, those really human interactions, the human touch is irreplaceable. Using AI for that can backfire.
That's a fascinating nuance. Okay, so clear communication is key. But how do you actually build an environment where people want to try AI, where they feel safe enough to experiment, maybe even fail sometimes, without fear?
That boils down to cultivating a culture of curiosity and psychological safety. It's about intentionally shifting the mindset from skepticism or fear towards genuine curiosity. It means actively encouraging experimentation and framing any failures not as mistakes, but as valuable learning opportunities.
Easier said than done sometimes, right? How do you do that practically?
Well, a few concrete strategies. One is creating digital sandboxes. These are basically low-risk, controlled environments where employees can play around with AI tools, test things out, without any fear of breaking critical systems or messing up real data. Leaders also need to model curiosity themselves. They should be seen openly questioning assumptions, maybe even encouraging respectful disagreement with what the AI suggests, show that critical thinking is valued. Establishing clear feedback loops is vital too. Give people easy ways to report issues, suggest improvements, and this is key, publicly share how that feedback actually led to changes. That builds a real sense of ownership. And finally, publicly reward curiosity. Acknowledge and celebrate employees or teams who take calculated risks, who try new things with AI, who share creative ideas or solutions. Turn those individual sparks of curiosity into broader team momentum.
It really reminds me of that time I nearly didn't upgrade my phone. I was just so comfortable with the old one, even though the new one was clearly way better. That sunk cost thing, right?
Exactly.
But I eventually pushed through that initial discomfort, mostly out of curiosity about the new features, and now, well, I can't imagine going back. So it really is about fostering that what-if attitude.
Precisely. And tied directly to that is targeted training and upskilling. This is another area where a lot of AI initiatives fall flat. One-size-fits-all training just doesn't cut it. For training to be effective, to really build confidence, it needs to be job-specific and user-centered.
Tailored to what people actually do.
Right. This directly tackles that psychological concept of self-efficacy, your internal belief in your own ability to succeed at something new. Often, that belief matters even more than your initial skill level. If you genuinely believe you can learn and use this new AI tool effectively for your job, you're already halfway there, no matter how complex it might seem initially. And there's a really interesting opportunity highlighted in the report. Millennial managers, roughly those aged 35 to 44, tend to be the most enthusiastic and often the most experienced AI users within many organizations.
The digital natives generation, practically.
Sort of, yeah. They can be incredibly powerful change champions. They're often well-positioned to bridge generational divides within the workforce. So empowering this group, maybe making them AI buddies or peer-powered coaches, can provide a much more relatable, trusted, and effective channel for training than just a top-down mandate from HR or IT.
That's a smart approach, leveraging internal champions. Okay, so you've got people curious, trained, experimenting. How do you track progress? How do you make sure this AI adoption actually sticks and becomes part of the normal workflow?
Yeah, sustaining it requires deliberate effort. It's about measuring success and actively reinforcing the new habits. One effective way is using dual KPIs. That means tracking not just traditional business metrics, ROI, efficiency gains, cost savings, but also pairing those with AI-specific measures.
Like what kind of measures?
Things like user satisfaction ratings with the new tools, adoption rates across different teams or departments, maybe even tracking the number of new processes improved by AI. We can also use something called the AI adoption curve. It's a model that maps the typical emotional journey teams go through, starting from initial skepticism, maybe moving through stages like denial, anger, bargaining, even a bit of depression as old ways change, then hopefully into experimentation, and finally reaching resilience and integration.
So it helps predict the emotional roller coaster.
Kind of, yeah. It helps leaders anticipate where their team might be psychologically at different points in the rollout. They can then tailor their communication, their support, their training to help guide people through those stages more smoothly, ultimately building confidence and fostering innovation.
Seeing this through real-world examples, not just theory, feels really important. What does successful AI adoption actually look like on the ground for SMBs?
Great question. And the examples show it's often not about some massive, disruptive Big Bang implementation. It's usually a series of these smaller, strategic, incremental wins. Take Henry's House of Coffee, mentioned in the sources, a small business, presumably, using AI tools to generate SEO-friendly product descriptions to help them compete online. A simple application, but it significantly boosted their visibility. We also saw examples of those micro-transformations companies encouraging teams just to use AI for small, regular tasks. Maybe transcribing meeting notes automatically, generating initial drafts of documentation. These small steps allowed them to scale up capabilities without overwhelming people.
So practical, everyday improvement.
Exactly. And then you have slightly larger examples. Ramp, the finance automation company, saved something like 30,000 hours of manual work per month. They used a custom OCR tool, that's optical character recognition, for reading text from images like receipts built with Azure AI. That's huge efficiency. Similarly, Marker Study Group, an insurance company, saved 56,000 hours annually using an Azure OpenAI app just to summarize calls in their claims department. And even very small businesses like Phoenix Fire Design boosted their efficiency significantly just by using affordable tools like ChatGPT for first drafts of content than having humans verify and edit. These cases provide a really powerful counter-narrative to that availability heuristic we talked about, those AI horror stories. They show that tangible success is achievable even for SMBs with limited resources.
Those are great examples of success. But we also need to look at the other side. What about the pitfalls? What happens when AI isn't managed well, or when there's maybe too much blind trust placed in it?
Understanding the failures is just as crucial, absolutely. And the high-profile examples really underscore the need for constant human oversight, clear goals, and realistic expectations. For instance, McDonald's decision to abandon its 3-year trial of AI voice ordering systems in drive-thrus. Why? Because the system consistently failed to understand different accents, background noise, complex orders.
Right, I remember reading about that. Frustrating for customers.
Very. And it highlights the danger of overestimating what current AI can reliably do in complex, real-world environments. Then there was the Air Canada chatbot lawsuit. The airline was actually ordered by a tribunal to compensate a customer because its own chatbot gave incorrect information about bereavement pairs. The ruling essentially said Air Canada was responsible for all information on its site, AI-generated or not. It emphasizes the legal and reputational risks if you don't have human validation processes in place.
Oh, that sets a precedent.
It does. And perhaps the most dramatic example is Zillow. They lost a staggering $500 million in their home buying division, Zillow Offers. Why? Because the AI algorithms they were using to predict housing prices were flawed. Whether it was bad data, faulty assumptions in the model, or misconfiguration, the result was a massive financial loss. It's a stark reminder that if an AI system is built on shaky foundations, the failures can be systemic and catastrophic.
Okay, so pulling all this together, the potential, the pitfalls, the psychology, what's the core lesson here? If AI isn't some magic wand, what should be the ultimate goal when businesses, especially SMBs, think about integrating it?
The core lesson, I think, is that AI is fundamentally a tool. A powerful one, yes, but still a tool. It absolutely requires human judgment, critical thinking, good quality data, and a culture that doesn't just blindly accept its output. And the ultimate goal, the real mindset shift needed, is moving beyond just thinking about automation doing the same old tasks, just faster and embracing augmentation.
Augmentation.
Meaning asking the question, okay, with this AI capability now available to me, what's a fundamentally better way to achieve my goal? Not just faster, but better, more creative, more insightful, more strategic. It's about positioning AI as that strategic co-pilot we mentioned, something that handles the routine, the data-heavy lifting, freeing up human employees for the tasks AI can't do well. Complex problem solving, creative thinking, building relationships, showing empathy. When you frame it that way, it creates a really positive feedback loop. As employees see AI genuinely enhancing their capabilities, making their work more interesting, less tedious, their confidence that self-efficacy grows, that leads to more willingness to experiment, more innovation. The ultimate aim, really, is to create what some call super agency, empowering people to leverage AI to its fullest while at the same time reclaiming a deeper sense of purpose, ownership, and satisfaction in their own work.
From automation to augmentation, from fear to super agency. That's a powerful shift. We've certainly covered a lot today navigating the fears, the unique hurdles for SMBs, and laying out that human-centric roadmap for AI adoption. As you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought for yourself. If AI really can start to free us up from the mundane, the repetitive parts of our work, what truly unique human problems or what exciting creative endeavors could you finally dedicate your full focus and energy to? Something to think about. Until next time, keep that curiosity alive.